Disney's A Christmas Carol was directed by Robert Zemeckis and it stars Jim Carrey as Ebenezer Scrooge. This movie came out in November 2009, and this is based off of it's also based off of a classic novel by Charles Dickens. So if y'all don't know the plot for A Christmas Carol, it's about Ebenezer Scrooge, who's grumpy and he's a Grinch. He hates Christmas and he hates people. He lost his business partner, Jacob Marley, who's played by Gary Oldman. And that night, Ebenezer meets three ghosts: the Christmas past, present, and future. For him to get, they're trying to help him get his life together in order for him to like Christmas and people again and be happy again. And now we got our movie. I think so. So this movie is absolutely. I heard so many negative reviews about this movie because it's probably the same old plot over and over, which is fine. It's not a big deal. I mean, what I enjoy about this movie, so what I love about this movie is actually adopts from the book and also from the previous A Christmas Carol films, probably one from the 1930s or 20s, something like that. And we also have we do have another Christmas Carol movie that also has the Muppets in it, and that is The Muppets Christmas Carol, which is also one of my favorite Disney holiday movies, which I used to love as a kid. And with this movie is still my favorite. This is by far one of my favorite Disney movies from Jim Carrey, or I shall say Robert Zemeckis. Now this was Robert Zemeckis' first time directing a Disney movie, but also his second time directing an animated movie. But this feels like live action and CG at the same time, which actually got me really, really confused. That's one of the worst things about this movie. The CG, live action, I really got confused if this movie was both CG and live action animation all into one. It's really confusing at first. So that's all I know. So the thing is, what the best part of the film is Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey killed it, man. Jim Carrey is great as Ebenezer Scrooge. But every time I look at Ebenezer Scrooge, I mean, with all due respect with Jim Carrey, I gotta say, Ebenezer Scrooge looks exactly like Jim Carrey. I can tell from the face. From the face, every time I look at Ebenezer Scrooge, he looks exactly like Jim Carrey. I mean, no offense, with all due respect, but Jim Carrey is great. But Jim Carrey doesn't just play Ebenezer Scrooge. He also plays the Ghost of Christmas Past, Present, and Future, and I think he did a really good job playing four characters. And I gotta say, I really love Ebenezer Scrooge's, not Ebenezer Scrooge. I really love Jim Carrey's characters of how he adopts playing Ebenezer Scrooge, and he gives one of the best performances also in the film. So yeah, that's Jim Carrey. So, but every time I look at the Ghost of Christmas Past and Present, they still look exactly like Jim Carrey. Like both Ebenezer Scrooge, Ghost of Christmas Past, and Present look exactly like Jim Carrey. Every time I look at them, I'm like, y'all, both y'all, I'm like, three of y'all look, I'm like, y'all three stooges look exactly like Jim Carrey. I mean, with all due respect, I mean, they do look exactly like Jim Carrey. I think they actually, what they did with Jim Carrey's face, they probably put Jim Carrey's face a little bit. I think one of them probably do look like Jim Carrey. I don't know if one of them look like Jim Carrey, which actually got me really, really confused. And also in this movie we have Commissioner Jim Gordon. Yeah, Gary Oldman is in this movie. So Gary Oldman is really great in this movie as well. We have him as Jacob Marley, and yeah, who's also a ghost version of himself. And we also have Gary Oldman also plays because Gary Oldman also he plays two characters. He plays Jacob Marley and Bob Cratchit. He's really great as those characters. He's actually really good as Bob Cratchit. Bob Cratchit looks a little. I feel like every time I look at Bob Cratchit, he looks like a nervous character. Like he's not really giving any results for his character at all. I mean, that's it. But then when I first saw the behind the scenes, I remember watching the behind the scenes of this movie, and I was like, oh yes, they got Commissioner Gordon from Batman Begins in this movie. How great that is. I mean, I'm glad they got Commissioner Gordon playing two characters from this movie. Yeah, you know how cool that is? And we got Colin Firth, who's also in this movie. Colin Firth, y'all know from Nanny McPhee and what are those other movies? Yeah, the Kingsman movies. He also plays in the Kingsman movies. Colin Firth is basically in this movie. Who plays Fred, who's Ebenezer Scrooge's nephew in this movie. He's actually really good, and I'm like, I think he's way better in this movie. I'm like, with Colin Firth, I mean, I say this with all due respect with him. I think he's way better in this movie than he was in Nanny McPhee. I mean, I like Nanny McPhee though, but that movie's for kids. And I still love Nanny McPhee as an adult. You know, I'm 22 years old, still liking Nanny McPhee. It's actually a great movie for young kids. And with this movie, I think Colin Firth is really good in this movie and also in Nanny McPhee. And I think he did a really good job. That's all I gotta say. But Marley issues, so let's get into a little bit of the positives with this movie. So the positive of this movie, you guys can say whatever you want about the motion capture, but the motion capture of this movie, I feel like is absolutely terrific. I love the motion capture, but my only issues with the negative, so let's get into the negative real quick. It was really confusing that if this movie was live action, if this movie CG or live action at the same time and bash into one. I mean, I remember looking at this movie, it got me really, really confused if this movie was actually CG, because to me, this movie is more CG with no live action. I mean, this feels a little bit like a CG. This is a CG movie, and I think the CG of this movie, the CGI is great. I love the setting. I love the CGI of the movie. I love the great shots of the whole city or something. I think it's a city or something. And I love the characters in this movie. They did a really good job with the motion capture and all the characters in this movie. But now let's get into the negatives. The negatives of this movie is really dark. This movie feels like every time I look at this movie, I remember watching this in theaters and like, I love the 3D. I love the Disney Digital 3D and IMAX 3D moments of this movie. But the IMAX, I'm not a big fan of IMAX. Not a big fan of IMAX. Not a big fan of jump scares. Not my favorite. My father loves IMAX. My father is a big fan. My father is a big IMAX person, but with me, I'm not. I think the last IMAX movie I probably saw, I think I remember watching Spider-Man 3 or Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix in IMAX when I first saw those movies in theaters, and I was like, yeah, I'm not a big fan of IMAX. There's no way I'm watching IMAX movies anymore. Well, actually, take that back. I'd rather watch the movies, but I'm not watching the IMAX. I'm not looking at the IMAX no more. I can't. Excuse me. So, let's get into the positive real quick. One positive, and that is the 3D. The 3D is great. I love the 3D of the movie. I don't remember watching this in 3D, or I don't remember watching this in 2D or 3D, but I remember watching this in theaters, but I was a little bit confused of watching this. I was a little bit confused if I have watched this movie in 2D or 3D. So, I think the 3D is great. I love the 3D. I can actually tell from the 3D. And with Disney, not Disney, what I meant to say, yeah, the Disney Digital 3D, I meant to say. I remember they came out with it in Disney Digital 3D and IMAX 3D, and I was like, wait, what happened to IMAX 3D? Maybe IMAX don't want the 3D anymore. Something like that. At least we got Real D 3D still. But with this movie, so now let's get into the negatives. My only negative things about this movie is there's some dark stuff in this movie that kids can probably be scared of. I don't understand why they have a little bit of scary dark stuff in the movie. So hold on. What I meant to say, yeah, there can be some dark stuff in this movie that can probably scare the life out of kids, and I wasn't really scared. I remember watching it. I remember watching that one scene that I'm not gonna spoil for you. If you have not seen the movie, I won't spoil it for you. From what happened to the Ghost of Christmas, From what happened to the Ghost of Christmas Present, I won't spoil for you if you have not seen the movie. I remember it was a little bit scary at first, but I wasn't really scared. I'm just looking like, what is going on? Like, really, what is going on? So, there can be, yeah, like I said, this is rated PG, but I feel like this movie is more for teenagers and adults. But actually, no, take that back. But it's true. But I feel like this movie is more for all ages. It is an all ages movie. But if you watch The Muppets Christmas Carol, that movie is for kids. This movie feels like a movie for all ages and more for teenagers and adults that for the adult Disney fans and for teenage Disney fans who enjoy watching, who has not seen this movie or have seen this movie. And this movie actually gives a great message. I mean, can you imagine Can you imagine young? I can only imagine. Like, can you guys imagine kids watching? Can you guys imagine kids watching this movie with their grandparents say, "Please don't end up like Ebenezer Scrooge. You know how he is. He's always grumpy. He's always mean. He acts just like the Grinch. Please don't, and hey, Grandma and Grandpa, please don't end up like Ebenezer Scrooge." And that's why I can only imagine kids saying that to their grandparents. I mean, no, I mean, with all due respect, though, but it's true. But what I enjoy about this movie is it gives a great message of saying, hey, don't end up like Ebenezer Scrooge. Don't end up like Ebenezer Scrooge, whatever you do. I mean, what I enjoy about this movie, it gives a really great message to a lot of people who enjoy Christmas. Like, it's about receiving, giving, and celebrating Christmas with your family and friends as well. And what do you love about Christmas? What do you like to do over Christmas? What do you like to buy? What do you like to buy your family stuff for Christmas? This movie is absolutely terrific, but my only issue is with this. I was the Rotten Tomatoes rating. My only issues with the movie, it has the same old plot, which doesn't bother me at all, but it doesn't have like new stuff in it. It kind of does, but it doesn't. So the movie this movie didn't really have enough surprises that I can really understand. I'm like, wait, something's not right. I think something's really, really wrong. This film has no surprise. There's no new stuff in it. It's nothing new that much. It's just the same old plot from the other Christmas Carol films, and I completely respect that. But I wanted to have something new as well. So that's what the movie could actually have. But it is what it is. It's just a Disney movie. I mean, I enjoyed this movie still. So how to exactly watch this movie? I don't have this on DVD, but I actually watched this movie on Disney Plus, and I was watching the Muppets Christmas Carol on Disney Plus. That movie is for kids. Kids will love the Muppets Christmas Carol, but with this movie that I'm reviewing with Jim Carrey in it, the movie that I'm reviewing, A Christmas Carol with Jim Carrey in it, I think kids can be a little bit scared with a little bit of the thriller, some dark IMAX scenes in the movie. And I didn't really like the jump scares that much in the movie. The jump scares in the movie, I am not a fan of jump scares. Not a fan. I mean, can you guys imagine this Disney movie? Imagine Disney's A Christmas Carol. So let's picture this. Imagine Disney's A Christmas Carol as a horror movie with Jim Carrey in it, and there's a bunch of scary stuff that can scare the life out of kids. And I'll be like, Robert Zemeckis, what on earth were you thinking of putting horror stuff in a Disney Christmas movie? I mean, what is this? So I was like, this movie is mixed with Krampus. So I was like, so I remember watching the movie Krampus, and I was like, yeah, this movie is mixed with Krampus meets the Grinch. So I was like, so this is the Grinch meets Krampus all into one, but also, I don't know. So I think this movie, what I think this movie could actually done is have a little bit of new surprises in the film, and I want this movie to have a little bit of stuff that kids can actually enjoy without being scared. Like fix this. Let's fix this. Take all the horror stuff out. Like take most of the scary stuff out. Make it more kid friendly. This feels like a little bit more. This movie is kid friendly, but Disney's Christmas. If you watch Disney, The Muppets Christmas Carol, that's kid friendly right there. But with this movie, this feels like a little bit of a teenage and adult friendly movie. I mean, yeah, there can be a little bit of stuff that kids can be a little bit scared of, but I really didn't want that to happen. I didn't like I wasn't expecting this movie to be a little bit of have jump scares, but I love the 3D still. But the jump scares, I can't right now. I can't really do the jump scares at all. Not a fan of jump scares. If you don't like jump scares like I do, if you're not a big fan of IMAX like I do, yeah, like you just be like, you know what? I don't know what Robert Zemeckis was thinking of putting most of the jump scares in the movie. And I enjoy Robert Zemeckis' movies. And I don't know. I think he did. I think he did. Forrest Gump. Then he did Back to the Future. Then he did The Polar Express. Then he did this movie, A Christmas Carol. Then he did the other movie, Disney's Marge Needs Moms. And I remember, and I enjoy Robert Zemeckis' live action films like Forrest Gump, which I believe he probably directed. But Back to the Future, they're great. They're great movies. And with The Polar Express, that movie is for... I mean, The Polar Express, a lot of people enjoy, but some people just didn't like it. Because even though it is a kid's movie, but it's also not just for kids, it's also a family movie. With this movie's the same thing. Every time... Because, you know, he directed... Because Robert Zemeckis actually directed 3 movies, and I think he did a really good job with the motion capture of those films. So I think there's nothing much to say about this movie anyway. So I think Robert Zemeckis did great with this movie, but I think he could at least put some stuff that kids can really enjoy. But I don't know what else to say about this film, but nothing much to say about this movie anyway. So that's all I gotta say for this movie review for Disney's A Christmas Carol. And Robert Zemeckis, I'm gonna give you praises for this movie of how great you did a good job with the directing, but just put a little bit of surprise, a little bit of new surprises and some new stuff in the movie. I mean, I don't know. So that's all I gotta say for Disney's A Christmas Carol. Jim Carrey. So Jim Carrey, Gary Oldman, and Colin Firth are both great in the movie. They did a really good job. So I really enjoyed this movie more. So that's all I gotta say for this movie review for Disney's A Christmas Carol. So be sure to like, subscribe, press notification bell, follow me on Instagram, comment down below, and I'll see you on my next video. Thank you for watching.